Welcome to JK Tells a Story, where real-life dramas unfold. Sit back and enjoy today's tale. Looking back on the years that brought me here, I can't help but think of when our relationship began. We met in college, both full of dreams, and felt an immediate connection. Veronica was everything I wanted. Beautiful, smart, and full of life. We spent all our time together, and I truly believed I had found my soulmate. Our relationship deepened quickly, and I thought we were destined for lifelong happiness. But as time passed, reality set in. The carefree days of our youth gave way to the responsibilities of adulthood. The woman I once adored began to feel like a stranger. Our lives became consumed with raising kids, managing careers, and navigating family dynamics. The love that once burned so brightly began to fade, and I found myself stuck in a marriage that was far from the fairy tale I'd imagined. Our marriage had reached a breaking point. Intimacy dwindled to almost nothing, happening maybe once a month, if Veronica wasn't holding a grudge. In the early days, our physical relationship was frequent, 4 or 5 times a week. Her passion and energy were part of what drew me to her. But now she had changed. No longer the attractive, lively woman I married. She had become distant and uninterested in closeness, almost as if she despised it. Veronica has 2 younger sisters, Lindsay and Brooke. All 3 were known for being fun and lively, and I was thrilled when Veronica chose me. We married 12 years ago after she got pregnant in college. We were both seniors and in love, planning to get married anyway. Our daughter Madison was born 5 months after the wedding, followed by our son Tyler a year and a half later. Both kids are spoiled by their mom, her sisters, and her parents, who have always looked down on me because I couldn't provide the luxuries they wanted for Veronica. Her parents, Richard and Pamela Ashford, never worked a day in their lives. They lived off inheritances. They're running out of money now, but only I know that because I checked the property records years ago. Veronica's sisters each have 2 kids. Lindsay is married to Preston Whitmore, who runs 5 dry cleaning stores for his dad. Brooke is married to Derek Sinclair, who inherited a house and some money when his grandparents died. He owns a marketing firm, though I've never seen him work. Like Veronica, they're fun at parties but useless when it comes to real work. 2 years ago, I sat in my home office in our Minnetonka house, frustrated after having to take care of myself in the shower that morning, and took a hard look at my life. Almost no intimacy. A lazy wife who doesn't work. 2 kids who don't respect me and take after their mother. A job I hate where the company treats us like servants. A house near her parents where it snows for 4 months of the year. I grew up in the South and hate the cold. A 10-year-old car that was originally my wife's until she wrecked it, traded in my car, and bought herself a new one because she couldn't wait for hers to be fixed. I'm not even allowed to drive the new car without facing verbal abuse. We're paying for a house that's too big because we need to live near her family. Paying for a small, inbred dog that needs meds to survive. Paying for a maid twice a week because housework made her too tired for intimacy 10 years ago. The small increase in our intimate life lasted 2 months, but the maid is still around. We're paying for a country club and spa membership so she can hang out with her friends and sisters. I don't play golf and have never been to the spa. Weekly payments for new clothes and hairstyling because she needs to look good for her social obligations. Paying for tennis lessons for her and the kids, though none of them are any good and never play. The kids would stay high all day if they could. We take 3 annual vacations. 1 in winter with her family for skiing, which I don't do because of a bad knee. 1 in spring to a big city for shopping, and 1 in summer to a beach trip that I'm not even invited to. Christmas and Thanksgiving are always spent at her family's houses. My parents live in a small bungalow on a beach in Naples, Florida, but their house is too small to visit. 1 wife, 2 kids, 1 father-in-law, 1 mother-in-law, 2 sisters-in-law, 2 nephews, 2 nieces, and 2 brothers-in-law, all of whom mock me because I don't have a family inheritance making life easy. I work long hours, yet my wife and kids don't appreciate the effort I put in to make their lives comfortable. And on top of all that, my wife is cheating on me. Exactly. She was a cheating liar. I didn't stumble upon this by accident. A few months before reassessing my life, I wanted to figure out why Veronica seemed so intent on avoiding intimacy. Either she'd lost interest or she was getting it elsewhere. So I decided to investigate. We live in a digital age where getting spyware, recorders, cameras, and monitoring software is easy. I started by placing a recorder in her car, connected to the car battery for unlimited power, and set up a Bluetooth station in the garage to automatically download recordings to my home PC. I then installed discrete cameras in every room of the house except the kids' rooms, and even covered outdoor areas like the patio, pool, and garage, all feeding directly to my computer. From early footage, I figured out Veronica's phone code, which she had kept secret from me. At around 3 a.m., I accessed her phone and installed monitoring software that allowed me to listen to all her calls and read every message. I also upgraded our home internet to business class, enabling remote access to my home PC from my phone. 2 weeks later, after everyone went to bed, I sat in my office and listened to a recording from her car. I heard Veronica say, "Can you meet this Thursday at my place? 10 works for me. I can't wait to ride you hard." "Me too, babe. Love you." That hit me like a ton of bricks. I immediately shut down my computer and took the dog for a walk, seething with anger. I was prepared for the worst, but hearing it was still a gut punch. However, I realized I wasn't sad, just angry. The next morning, I faced the reality of my life. A cheating wife and a life full of one-sided commitments. I needed to get out of this nightmare. First, I had to identify the guy and gather hard evidence. I realized there were no relevant conversations on Veronica's phone. She must have had another one. After working late, I searched her car and found the hidden phone in the front console's air vent, secured with Velcro. I used the same code as her primary phone, installed the monitoring software, and put everything back as it was. Then I reviewed the results, 2 years' worth of deleted but recoverable texts. What I found was shocking. The messages revealed that Veronica and her sisters were comparing their lovers' performances and even discussed swapping partners. My wife's latest affair was with our daughter's soccer coach, Jason. Lindsay was pursuing a grocery store worker, but Veronica and Brooke warned her that unmarried guys were off-limits. Their mom even had rules for cheating. Brooke was involved with a mechanic who had been with all 3 sisters, and their mom had been with him first. Veronica had also been involved with Preston and Derek, but only occasionally, though her sisters encouraged her to keep them in line. I knew I needed an exit strategy. The following week, I pretended to be clueless while starting arguments over household chores, which led her to snap at me. I made a mental note to restart the fights periodically and moved into the guest room. A week later, I had a plan. I wanted out of the marriage, out of my job, all the money, no alimony, and I didn't want the kids since she had ruined them. I wanted to hurt my in-laws and make Veronica suffer mentally for as long as possible. Ultimately, I wanted to start over and build a real family. I realized I'd been foolish. Neither Veronica nor her family appreciated a hard-working, devoted husband. Her parents, sisters, and their husbands were toxic, narcissistic people who only cared about getting what they wanted. I began to devise a plan to get her sisters divorced and leverage my in-laws to my advantage. It was time to take control. When I was at Lindsay's for dinner, I discreetly took close-up photos of 1 alarm clock, 2 wall clocks, and a smoke detector. At Brooks, I did the same with 2 alarm clocks, 2 wall clocks, and a doorbell camera. At Mom's, I snapped a picture of 1 alarm clock. I had already replaced all the smoke detectors at home with newer models a year ago, mainly to stop Veronica from complaining. The hardest part was finding a matching doorbell cover, but eBay came through. After installing cameras in each house, I hosted a pool party and invited everyone over. While they were swimming, I borrowed their house keys and installed monitoring software on their phones, knowing their lock codes from previous recordings. During the party, I accidentally dropped a bag of ice. Lindsay snapped, "Are you completely useless? Go get more ice." I apologized and left. On the way, I stopped by Mom's, Brooks, and Lindsay's houses to make a few replacements. I installed wireless boxes in their attics after connecting to their networks. I also copied their house keys, grabbed some ice, and headed back. When I returned, Brooks sarcastically said, "Took you long enough." I made up a story about a flat tire. No one thanked me or showed any sympathy. 2 days later, I had video proof of Brooke with that mechanic. They rushed inside, leaving a trail of clothes from the front door to the bedroom. Afterward, he said he needed to leave before his wife got suspicious. Brooke tried to coax him into another round, but he declined, saying he needed to save energy for his wife. As he left, he entered his phone code in front of the camera, which I noted. The next Thursday, I snuck in while they were occupied and installed monitoring software on his phone, which was in his pants on the living room floor. Things escalated from there. The next day, I discovered Lindsay's affair involved her uncle, and her aunt was complicit too. I endured watching it, thinking I'd rather be watching National Geographic. Later, I caught my wife in our bedroom with Morgan, our neighbor's wife, a stunning redhead. They were together the whole time, and I found myself somewhat less disturbed by that video. Afterward, Morgan took a shower and left, walking home visibly uncomfortable. Then came the real shock. Preston and Derek entered Lindsay's bedroom and undressed. I realized I never wanted to shake hands with them again after what I saw. Finally, I reviewed footage from Lindsay's parents' house. There was Richard with a young woman who wasn't Pamela. The audio captured their entire evening together. The Ashford family's secret life was now fully exposed to me, but they had no idea. I also discovered that Richard and Pamela had set up trust funds for their daughters and grandchildren years ago. The trust was established using money from Pamela's family, with Richard listed as the executor. However, the actual executor was someone with the initials EC. My initials, Ethan Carter. Years ago, when Veronica's great-uncle passed away, I had been named as a trustee. The family attorney had approached me, and I'd signed paperwork thinking it was routine estate documentation. Now I realized I had control over the family's remaining wealth. The trust was set up to provide monthly payments to family members who met certain moral character requirements. Given what I now knew about the Ashford sisters and their mother, I had grounds to cut off their access entirely. But I needed to be strategic. If I acted too quickly, they'd lawyer up and try to fight me. Instead, I decided to let them think the money was still coming while I systematically destroyed their support systems. Over the next few weeks, I continued my surveillance. The mechanic, Cole Brennan, had been involved with Pamela first, then methodically worked his way through all three daughters. Preston and Derek had their own arrangement that had become more than friendship. My wife's latest affair was with our daughter's soccer coach, Jason. And my boss, Travis Bowman, was having an affair with his secretary, Elena Rodriguez. I was ready to burn it all down. The first domino to fall was the mechanic's marriage. Cole's wife, Gabrielle, was a force of nature. Her father was a local mob boss in the Twin Cities area. I carefully edited together footage of Cole with Pamela, then Brooke, then Lindsay, and finally Veronica. I blacked out everyone's faces except Cole's and sent the compilation to Gabrielle's email with a simple message. Thought you should know what your husband does on Thursdays. 3 days later, the mechanic shop Cole worked at was closed. Word around the neighborhood was that Cole had left town suddenly, and Gabrielle had filed for divorce. I later learned through my surveillance network that Cole had been given a very clear message about the consequences of returning to Minneapolis. With the mechanic out of the picture, the Ashford women were in chaos. Their shared lover had vanished without explanation, and they couldn't figure out why. I watched through my cameras as they frantically texted each other, trying to piece together what happened. Brooke was the most affected. She'd been planning to leave Derek for Cole, believing the mechanic would be her ticket to a simpler, more passionate life. Now she was stuck in a marriage she despised, with a husband who was more interested in Preston than in her. Next, I turned my attention to Preston and Derek's arrangement. I'd captured plenty of footage of the two brothers-in-law together, and I knew exactly how to use it. I created anonymous social media accounts and began posting hints about two local dry cleaning heirs living double lives. I included photos of Preston and Derek at various locations around Minneapolis, always together, always looking a bit too comfortable. I never posted anything explicit, just enough to get people talking. The rumors spread quickly through the Ashford family's social circle. Country club members began whispering. Business associates started asking questions. The pressure mounted on both men. Within 2 weeks, Preston's father called him in for a meeting. The old man had heard the rumors and wanted them stopped immediately. He threatened to cut Preston out of the family business if the embarrassing speculation continued. Preston, panicking, made the worst possible decision. He tried to prove his heterosexuality by becoming aggressive and controlling with Lindsay. He demanded she dress more provocatively, accompanied him to all business functions, and constantly talked about having more children. Lindsay, already frustrated by the loss of her lover and suspicious about her husband's relationship with Derek, snapped. She filed for separation, claiming Preston was emotionally abusive. Derek, seeing Preston's marriage implode, decided to get ahead of the situation. He sat Brooke down and confessed to the affair, but blamed it entirely on Preston, claiming he'd been seduced and felt terrible about it. Brooke, already angry about Cole's disappearance and Derek's lack of attention, filed for divorce immediately. She wanted nothing to do with a man who'd been unfaithful, regardless of the circumstances. Both sisters hired aggressive divorce attorneys and went after everything. Preston stood to lose his inheritance and his position in the family business. Derek faced losing the house his grandparents had left him. Richard and Pamela were apoplectic. Their carefully constructed family image was crumbling. Both daughters were divorcing their husbands in very public, very messy proceedings. The country club was buzzing with gossip. Their social standing was in ruins. And I watched it all unfold from the comfort of my home office, sipping coffee and taking notes. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Preston's father, furious about the scandal affecting his business, began looking for a scapegoat. He hired a private investigator to look into Preston's activities and find evidence to use in the divorce proceedings. The investigator discovered Preston's frequent visits to Derek's house and compiled his own report. When Preston's father saw the evidence, he made good on his threat. Preston was removed from all management positions at the dry cleaning business and given a severance package that was far smaller than he'd expected. His father told him, "You're on your own now. Don't embarrass this family any further." Preston, broke and desperate, moved into a cheap apartment. The man who'd once mocked me for not having a family fortune was now working as a manager at someone else's dry cleaning store, making barely enough to cover child support. Derek fared slightly better, but not by much. He managed to keep his house in the divorce, but Brooke got everything else, including a hefty alimony payment. His marketing firm lost clients as word spread about the divorce, and he struggled to keep the business afloat. Both sisters ended up moving back in with their parents, bringing their 4 grandchildren with them. Richard and Pamela were forced to take them in, despite their dwindling finances and fury at the situation. I overheard Pamela through my surveillance system complaining bitterly about having to put up with her daughters and their kids. Meanwhile, life at home improved slightly. With her sisters in crisis, Veronica actually seemed to appreciate me a bit more. She even briefly complimented me as the main breadwinner compared to her sister's ex-husbands, though they quickly turned it into a joke. Pamela was recovering from rhinoplasty around this time. She'd broken her nose weeks earlier when she confronted Gabriel Brennan about Cole, before he left town. The confrontation had turned physical, and Gabrielle, defending herself, had struck back. Pamela's nose healed crooked and noticeably larger despite the surgery, which was a small victory for me. While she was recovering, I enjoyed a brief reprieve from her interference. Meanwhile, I grew more resentful of my boss, Travis Bowman. He had become a greedy, self-centered idiot. As the company grew, our bonuses had shrunk from $16,000 to less than $2,000, and I was earning less each year due to inflation and rising costs. Since my surveillance hobby had worked so well, I expanded it to Travis's office, his home, and his secretary Elena Rodriguez's apartment. Rumors suggested they were having an affair, and it wasn't hard to confirm. I got a copy of Elena's apartment key during a management meeting and installed cameras and monitoring software. With access to their phones, I discovered they were meeting every Thursday at Elena's apartment. I got video evidence of everything. Elena and I always got along well at work. Unlike the other men, I wasn't afraid of Travis or interested in Elena romantically. Most of the women at the office were cold toward her. Elena dressed professionally, often in long skirts and conservative blouses. With her round face, I assumed she was overweight. However, after seeing the footage from her apartment, I realized that was far from true. Elena worked out regularly and was very fit, though she dressed in oversized clothes to avoid unwanted attention. She also wore minimal makeup, which I respected. Travis, on the other hand, was not particularly impressive in his personal encounters. Each one was mercifully brief. After 4 weeks of surveillance, I quit my job. I had built the company's software from scratch and decided to create an enhanced version with new features. I knew Travis would need my help to finish his current projects. Coincidentally, one of the oldest parts of the code had become corrupted, and the backups were mysteriously missing. An innocent mistake by IT, of course. I started working from home, so my routine didn't change much. 2 weeks later, Travis was begging me to return. I negotiated a contract that doubled my previous hourly rate, which meant I could quadruple my old salary with overtime. I rewrote the corrupted code from memory, improving it and adding new features requested by clients. The other modules needed adjustments to work with the new one, but the enhancements made my version even better. Customers loved the updates, and both Travis's software and my new company's software were successful. After 30 days, my contract was extended indefinitely. The following week, my wife received a letter from an attorney about a relative who had passed away. We met with the attorneys and learned that her great-uncle, who had no immediate family, had left a trust fund providing $4,000 per month to a family member of good moral character. If that person had a child and named it after him or his late wife, the amount would increase to $20,000 per month. Since Veronica's 2 sisters were excluded due to their past behavior, the attorneys were diplomatically vague. They approached her. We signed the paperwork and received our first check. Veronica was thrilled and talked nonstop on the way home about quitting birth control and having another baby to secure the larger payout. Once home, I told her, "We need to talk." She was too happy to notice my serious tone. At the kitchen table, I had to ask her to stop texting. "I quit my job a year ago, and things haven't gone as planned," I confessed. "What? And you're just now telling me?" she exclaimed. "I started my own software company. It's working, but it's taking longer than expected." "Well, that doesn't matter now," she replied dismissively. "We have plenty of money, and more coming." She jumped up to kiss me, but I stopped her. "I'm never going to be intimate with you again," I said. She turned red with anger. "What did you say?" "I'm never going to sleep with you again," she screamed. "Who do you think you are?" I calmly pulled out my phone and showed her a video. "Remember when your sisters got those recordings? Gabrielle Brennan sent them copies after she discovered Cole's affairs. We got one too, but I deleted your copy so you'd never know. I kept mine just in case." I played the video. She was utterly shocked, frozen, eyes wide, mouth open, arms hanging limply at her sides. For a brief moment, I saw a flicker of something in her eyes, fear, maybe even regret, but it vanished quickly, replaced by calculation. "That's in the past. What do you mean you won't be intimate with me?" she demanded. I shouted, "We haven't been intimate in over a year. Why would I start now?" Veronica looked confused. "Because of the money, dear. $20,000 a month is a lot. Don't be mad at me. I've been stressed, but that's behind us now. Please, let's focus on our future and having a new baby." "No," I replied. "You've treated me horribly since we got married." Her tone changed instantly. "Listen, you worthless piece of trash, we're going to be intimate and make a baby, or I'll divorce you. Got it?" She jabbed her finger at me. I just stared at her. "And I'm not sharing the $4,000 a month either," she added, trying to sound tough. I relaxed and calmly said, "Fine by me. I'm filing for divorce on the grounds of infidelity. Can you give me the number of the attorney we just met? They seemed competent. I'm sure I can find a good divorce lawyer with them." Veronica instantly calmed down, realizing I had the upper hand. She sat down and said more softly, "It was just physical. I don't love Morgan. I only love you. Let's not throw away all the years we've spent together." "I'm just catching up on the new rules," I replied. "The lying, the cheating. It was all a mistake. I love you and want things back the way they were. I agree. Let's go to the bedroom right now, she suggested eagerly. I knew you loved me, I said, feeling a flicker of hope. No, I was lying, she retorted. Did you see how easily you believed me? Interesting to be on the other side, isn't it? If you really loved me, you'd try to make this work, she continued, her tone sharp. All right, you're right. I'll work harder on our relationship, I conceded, trying to ease the tension. I knew you loved me. Want to make it up to me in the bedroom? She asked, her voice softening. No, I'm never having intimacy with you again, I responded firmly. Veronica looked shocked. But you just said you'd work harder on our relationship. Yes, I did. I was lying, I admitted, feeling a strange sense of detachment. It gets easier the more you do it. Veronica looked like she was about to cry. I'm sorry, I was just kidding. Do you really mean it? She asked, her voice trembling. No, not at all. I lied again, I said coldly. Wow, lying really does make it easier to communicate with someone who trusts you, doesn't it? She observed with a bitter edge. I've been lying too. My parents are billionaires and will never have to worry about money again. I'll never leave you, and you'll have an unlimited allowance for life. Veronica, pouting, said, Not funny. Isn't it hard to talk to someone who lies to your face to get what they want? I'm sorry. I won't lie to you again, I promised, trying to end the game. Will you stop lying to me? She asked, her voice filled with doubt. Yes, I will, I assured her. A tear rolled down Veronica's cheek. I love you with all my heart. Your kids love you. My sisters and parents think you're the best husband in the world, she said, her voice softening. I'm not sure I believe you. They were pretty disrespectful the other day, I said, still wary. No, you know that's not true. They were just kidding. Let's have a party this weekend so you can see how much everyone adores you, she suggested, trying to convince me. That sounds fun. Will Derek and Preston be there too? I asked, trying to sound interested. Sure, the whole family, she confirmed. Is Saturday afternoon okay? I inquired, setting a tentative plan. Sure, honey, that would be great, she agreed. Then, with a hint of suspicion, she added, You're not lying to me again, are you? No. Having everyone over will be a memorable experience, I replied, trying to reassure her. Great. A big party to show how much everyone loves you, she said, hugging me while I stayed seated, even kissing the top of my head. Lucky me. The next few days passed in a strange limbo. Veronica acted as if everything was fine, planning her party with manic energy. I'd been sleeping in the guest room for over a year and had installed a deadbolt after I moved in, always keeping the door locked. Around 5 a.m., I heard an alarm clock go off in the house, and someone tried to pick the lock on my door, but the deadbolt held. I guess someone thought they could slip into my bed early in the morning. Veronica called all the relatives to invite them. Listening in on her calls was hilarious. She had to bribe her sisters with some of the $4,000 to get them to come. Preston and Derek were easy. She promised them free food and an open bar. Her parents weren't interested until they heard about the $20,000 a month. Her dad was already scheming with Veronica on how to cut me out of the money after the baby was born. What hurt the most was seeing Veronica having to convince Madison and Tyler, our own children, to be nice to me. She mentioned money, and they begrudgingly agreed. Not liking their attitude, she threatened to take away their allowance, phones, home computers, and any future car if they messed it up. They quickly promised to be perfect children for their dad. But don't worry, it didn't hurt too much. 7 years ago, I started thinking of them as angry stepchildren, which is how they treated me and the level of authority I had over them. You would have thought I'd won the lottery. Everyone was overly nice, though I could see the fake smiles and clenched teeth. I played along, being polite. I complimented my kids on their behavior, which was so good it didn't seem like they were mine. I mentioned to Brooke that I'd heard she was doing well at her new secretarial job. She gave me a tight smile, clearly not wanting to discuss her reduced circumstances. I found Preston and Derek by the bar and asked about their social life now that they were single. When they mentioned a particular club, I scowled, explaining that I'd heard it's where divorced guys get drunk and taken advantage of. They went pale. I had bugged their new apartment, after all. I casually told my father-in-law that I thought I saw him and his brother with a young woman named Ashley at a restaurant. My mother-in-law's glare could melt steel. I knew Ashley was a transgender woman they had met at a hotel. Later, my father-in-law suddenly needed a refill on his drink, even though it was full. I guess he never shared those details with his wife. Finally, I was alone with my mother-in-law by the pool. No one dared interrupt. I remarked on how nice it was to see everyone together again. She mentioned Preston and Derek staying friends and becoming roommates after the divorce, but her eyes suggested she suspected they were more than just friends. I added that Lindsay and Brooke would bounce back, though raising 2 kids and working as a waitress and secretary would leave little time for romance, especially with 10 more years until the grandkids were out of her house. I then casually mentioned how well my kids were doing in school and suggested a pool party to inspire them. She absent-mindedly agreed, even though I knew the pool had been emptied years ago to cut costs. I brought up seeing her husband and his brother laughing and dining with a young woman at a hotel restaurant. I showed her a photo I had edited, carefully removing feet in high heels under the table and adjusting a napkin on her husband's lap. After staring at it for nearly a minute, she quietly asked me to send it to her, seething with anger. As I glanced around, I noticed everyone was watching us. My mother-in-law, usually loud and controlling, was silent, a first in her life. "So I guess Veronica told you about her little windfall?" I said. "Yes. It's a wonderful chance for you two to get ahead. You should consider having another baby to secure your financial future, especially with your job situation." My mother-in-law responded, a conniving look in her eyes. "Well, Veronica and I have had some marital issues. We'll see if we can work through them. She loves you and it's a lot of money," she said, practically salivating at the thought. "I hope you'll encourage her to do whatever it takes to make our marriage work," I replied with a sneer. She added, "Don't take too long. She has other options." I leaned back. Other options? Well, her sisters can't help. Infidelity is off the table for them. If Veronica tries to divorce me, I'll sue for infidelity. I have proof. If she gets pregnant by someone else, a DNA test will show it. And I've already secured an attorney with all the evidence, just in case something happens to me. Any lawsuit will cut off any money going to the plaintiff. So what were these other options? My mother-in-law was speechless, her mouth hanging open in shock. Everyone at the party was staring, confused. I smiled at her, watching her struggle for words. Finally, she asked, "Can you get me another soda, please?" I took her glass and headed to the kitchen. From the sink, I watched her frantically talk to her husband and daughters, clearly upset. They all turned to look at me when they noticed her staring. She abruptly grabbed her husband's hand and led him out of the backyard through the side gate without saying another word. The 3 sisters then stormed into the house, berating me for upsetting their mother, repeatedly asking what I had said. From that day on, my mother-in-law never spoke directly to me again. Next, I turned my attention to Elena Rodriguez. Originally, I hadn't considered her in my plans, but after overhearing her express hatred for Travis and frustration with what she had become, I realized her potential as a salesperson for my new company. I took photos of my boss Travis and Elena walking arm in arm out of a downtown hotel. No kissing, just looking comfortable together. I didn't want anything too embarrassing getting out. I sent the pictures to Travis's wife. When Travis got home, his wife confronted him with the photos, reminding him of the rules. Never in the house, no children involved, nothing public. Travis argued, but eventually gave in. She wasn't going to be easy to crack, so I knew I'd have to escalate things. That Monday, Travis fired Elena. I was waiting outside as she left. "Hi, Elena. What's wrong?" I asked, noticing her distressed expression. Visibly upset, she replied, "Nothing. I just got fired." I caught up to her. "Sorry to hear that. Can we talk? I have something you might want to hear," I offered, trying to sound sympathetic. Elena stopped and stared at me. "What do you want?" she asked, suspicion evident in her voice. "I want to offer you a job," I said directly. Doing what? She inquired, her curiosity piqued. Sales at my software company, I explained, keeping my tone professional. I didn't know you owned a software company. Wait, how did you know I was getting fired today? She asked, sharp as ever. I looked her in the eye. Let's just say I've been keeping a close eye on my competition and didn't want to miss out on talent, I replied, revealing just enough to satisfy her curiosity. How much? She asked, getting straight to the point. Same salary plus 20%. But you'll need to pay for your own apartment. I saw your place listed in the company books and don't want any strings attached. I clarified, laying out the terms. Deal. When do I start? She agreed without hesitation. You're already on the clock. I'll pick you up around the corner so Travis doesn't see you. He's probably watching. I instructed, planning ahead. I walked away, and when I glanced back, she was making a gesture toward Travis's office. I picked her up, and we headed to my house. On the way, I told her about my marriage. When I mentioned I hadn't been intimate with my wife in 2 years, Elena asked if I was joking. Not since I found out she was cheating. I confessed, my voice heavy with the weight of the situation. I explained that I wouldn't be married much longer but needed her help to get my company away from Travis. I asked Elena to keep it a secret. She smiled warmly. Those brown eyes were something else. When we arrived, Lindsay was there. Lindsay growled, "Who's this?" Her tone filled with suspicion. "This is my new head of sales and marketing. She'll be working here for now. Any problems, Lindsay?" I introduced Elena, making my authority clear. "No problems," Lindsay replied, albeit reluctantly. Elena seemed surprised by her new title, but I set her up at a desk next to mine. We spent the day going over my new software, which impressed her, especially the sales module. Over the past 2 years, using contractors and countless hours, I had rewritten all of Travis's programs. The new software was 10 times faster, smaller, and more intuitive, with all the features Travis deemed too expensive. I gave Elena 3 leads already using my sales software, and she quickly secured appointments for demos. Before Elena left that first day, I told her, "I'll be having a conversation with Veronica in the kitchen tonight. I might need your help. Can you come over?" I hinted at the seriousness of the situation. I left the office door open and called Veronica into the kitchen. "We need to talk," I began, preparing for a difficult conversation. "Veronica, I'm not going to be intimate with you, but we've been getting along so well," she protested, surprised by my sudden statement. "I need you and your sisters to be with someone," I said, cutting to the chase. "What? We're not. You can't just order us around," she snapped, her voice rising in anger. "What if I promise to give you a divorce so you can remarry and have a legitimate baby?" I offered, trying to sweeten the deal. "You'll let me divorce without claiming infidelity?" she asked, her tone softening as she considered the proposal. "Yep," I confirmed. Veronica smiled. "Who do we have to be with?" she asked, now more cooperative. "My boss, Travis. I need you and your sisters to meet him in a hotel room tonight," I instructed, laying out my plan. "We can't do it tonight. How about tomorrow?" she suggested, trying to negotiate. "No, it has to be tonight. He just ended things with his girlfriend and will be looking for company." I insisted, my voice firm. "Okay, but who'll watch the kids?" she asked, practical as ever. "Elena and I will," I reassured her. Veronica hesitated, about to ask something about Elena, but I quickly pulled out a new purse from under the table. "I have a present for you," I said, trying to divert her attention. I pointed to some black buttons on the purse. "These are cameras. Just make sure nothing blocks the view," I explained, my tone casual yet purposeful. Veronica hesitated again. "I'm not sure I'm comfortable being recorded," she admitted, her voice tinged with unease. "I have weeks of videos of you with different guys," I stated bluntly. "The footage of you with Preston and Derek is over 2 hours. I've got days of footage of you and Morgan in our bed. Don't tell me you're shy now," I added, my voice firm, reminding her of the leverage I held. Veronica, looking sad, asked, You have videos of me with Preston, Derek, and Morgan? Her voice was barely above a whisper, the weight of the situation sinking in. Yep, and many more, I confirmed without hesitation. If I do this, will you destroy all the recordings? She asked, a glimmer of hope in her voice. Absolutely. Do this for me and they're gone. I promised, sealing the deal. Veronica smiled again, a reluctant acceptance in her expression. Okay, let's do this, she agreed, her voice steadying as she committed to the plan. Veronica called her sisters and explained the plan. Within 20 minutes, they arrived with their kids, all dressed in the smallest outfits I'd ever seen them wear. I didn't even know Veronica owned something so revealing, but when you offer free babysitting, drinks, a hotel suite, and a new partner, how else would they react? Once alone with the sisters on the porch, I showed them a picture of Travis and said, I want you to wear him out. Their eager smiles told me they were up for it. After they left, Elena and I got the kids settled in front of the TV and went to the office to monitor the situation. I started to explain more of my plan to Elena, but she waved me off, saying, No need. From what I've seen and heard, Travis deserves whatever's coming. The sisters arrived at the lounge before Travis, and I told Veronica to leave her purse on the table so I could see through the cameras. Travis eventually showed up, but with Nancy from work. Elena cursed when she saw Nancy. She didn't waste any time, did she? Elena snapped a picture of them at the bar and sent it to Nancy's boyfriend Glenn, with a quick message implying trouble. Within minutes, Nancy was crying and running out, leaving Travis confused. But when Veronica shouted across the bar, Forget her, Travis! He quickly joined the sisters at their table. Soon they were all headed to a hotel suite. In the room, the sisters quickly undressed, followed by Travis, and they all got into bed where things escalated into a chaotic scene. After 25 minutes, I was feeling uncomfortable watching, and looked over at Elena, who was also visibly flustered. I apologized and offered to stop watching, but Elena suddenly ran out of the room. I thought I'd offended her, but she returned, locking the door behind her and said, The kids are asleep. I need you. After 2 years without intimacy, I wasn't going to say no. We connected, then resumed watching the video. They might actually exhaust him completely, I remarked. Nice way to go, Elena replied. Usually Travis is brief. I saw Veronica give him 2 pills. I wonder if he was foolish enough to take both. From what we saw, it looked like he did. Elena and I later slipped into the guest room, showered together, and slept there. I wanted to enjoy her company as long as possible. We set the alarm to wake up before the kids to avoid any morning drama. In the morning, I fast-forwarded through the video. The sisters had kept Travis occupied for over 3 hours, treating him like a plaything. His grin showed he didn't mind. Elena wanted to leave, but I convinced her to stay for a few more hours, and she even made breakfast for the kids, who were amazed. Elena left around 9 to change clothes. Veronica and her sisters returned around 11, exhausted but smiling, while Travis looked worn out. I gave Veronica more instructions and had her call Travis for a repeat performance. He agreed but insisted on only taking 1 pill this time. They started drinking in the suite before Travis arrived. When he knocked, Veronica handed him 2 pills, but he only took 1. After a few minutes, Preston and Derek showed up. I told Veronica to invite them, claiming Travis wanted to discuss a potential business partnership. It was all part of gathering more compromising footage. The situation quickly devolved beyond business talk. I stopped watching at that point, preferring to wait until Elena was back. She had client visits in the morning, so I planned to watch the recording later. The next day, with Elena back, the sisters still at the hotel, and the kids at school, I fast-forwarded through the footage. It looked like a poorly produced adult film from the 70s, but I got what I needed. I rented an apartment downtown, right across from Travis's office, and paid a cleaning service to keep it stocked with food and water. I had the 3 sisters meet Travis there every day after work, as often as he allowed. When Travis tried to skip a day for rest, I gave the sisters tips on where to be so he couldn't avoid them. To keep Lindsay and Brooke motivated, I promised them 10% of Veronica's $20,000 monthly allowance once she was divorced and had the baby. Veronica agreed, knowing they'd take advantage of her otherwise, and that without them, there'd be no divorce. I eventually sent a highlight reel of Travis's activities to his wife, blacking out everyone's faces except Travis's. Travis's wife, Sophia DeLuca, was not someone to be trifled with. Her father ran one of the most respected and feared families in the Twin Cities. I'd underestimated the importance of respect in her world. When Travis got home, Sophia was waiting. She dragged him to the bedroom and confronted him with the evidence. The audio I captured through my surveillance system told me everything I needed to know. She made it clear, "I'm divorcing you. If you fight me, I'll release these videos to everyone you know." Travis nodded, terrified. She added, "I'm leaving for a week. When I return tomorrow morning, I expect the locks to be changed and you to be gone forever. You get nothing from this house except the clothes on your back and your car. If you ever come back, there will be consequences." As she walked out, Travis tried to protest, but she coldly replied, "Don't worry. A couple of associates will escort you out. Have a nice life." The next morning, two large men in suits made sure Travis left promptly. Sophia filed for divorce that same day. Though upset, Travis was too preoccupied with the Ashford sisters to dwell on it. He started staying at the apartment where they could easily reach him. When they saw evidence of Sophia's displeasure with him, they laughed, and Lindsay even mocked him until he was visibly humiliated. Sophia froze all their accounts, and Travis soon struggled to pay his employees. Losing 25% of his business to a new competitor, me, didn't help. I called 3 key people at Travis's company, hinting that payroll might not happen and offering them jobs. They didn't commit right away, but I left the door open. A few days later, Travis tried to access his house but found it locked. I texted him, "I told you, only your clothes and car." Believing his wife was behind the leaked video, he was shocked when evidence of his involvement with Preston and Derek spread throughout the industry, courtesy of an anonymous tip to a gossipy competitor. Within a week, the 3 key employees called back, accepting my offer. With Travis's reputation ruined, his company struggling financially, and his divorce looming, I managed to capture 90% of his clients within 60 days. His company shut down 2 days after his divorce was finalized. Once my company was thriving, I filed for an uncontested divorce and paid to expedite the process. I gave Veronica the house, though she didn't know I had taken a second mortgage on it to fund my startup. Half of our $88,000 joint account, her car, and nothing else. When she demanded half of my company, I told her it wasn't worth anything on paper yet and threatened to change the grounds to infidelity. She quickly signed the papers, clearly thinking, $20,000 a month, here I come. We were divorced 60 days later. The day after, Veronica married Cole Brennan, the mechanic, likely expecting to be rich and enjoy her new life. She spent the $8,000 from our settlement and the $20,000 from her parents on the wedding. Soon after, she was pregnant. Rumor had it they were intimate even during the wedding reception. 3 months later, Veronica and her mom visited the trust fund lawyers, expecting the $20,000 monthly payments to start. They were shocked to learn the trust funds had already been awarded to another candidate. The lawyers had to call the police due to the damage caused during the confrontation. The audio was frankly amusing. A few weeks later, Veronica showed up at my house inappropriately dressed, trying to reopen the divorce settlement. I reminded her the divorce was final and she was remarried. She made an inappropriate offer, but I snapped a picture and asked if her new husband would appreciate seeing it. I then slammed the door. She banged on the door, screaming and crying, begging me not to send the photo. I told her I wouldn't as long as she never came back. Her last words were, "I'm sorry I ruined our marriage. I wish you had been enough for me." It was clear she was living in a delusion. I eventually let go of my surveillance hobby, destroying all the recordings. The years that followed brought their own kind of justice. Travis disappeared after his company closed, with his last known location in San Francisco's Castro district. Sophia remarried a younger CEO and had 3 kids with him. My own kids graduated from high school and ended up in dead-end jobs. They asked me for work, but I told them to call me if they ever became programmers. Preston and Derek leveraged their notoriety into a different kind of recognition, eventually befriending a successful business owner looking to retire. Lindsay ended up in a better place. She and Morgan, our former neighbor who divorced her husband, got married and seemed genuinely happy. Richard and Pamela Ashford lost their last property and eventually got divorced, each going their separate ways. Veronica herself stayed married for about a year before losing her house and being left by Cole. She now works as a waitress, lives in a trailer park, and raises Cole's child. As for those who were involved with my wife and others, I didn't let them off the hook. After Veronica lost the trust fund money, I sent all the incriminating videos and voice recordings to their spouses and relatives, using Veronica's personal email. I sent over 300 emails and cloned her phone to ensure the messages were received. Veronica sent me an angry text accusing me of breaking my promise to destroy the recordings. I replied, "Thanks for making honesty unnecessary in our marriage. It made getting what I wanted so much easier." She never responded. Regarding the divorces, I uncovered 13 cases linked to Veronica, Brooke, and their mechanic lover. Cole, notorious among the wives he pursued, caused 8 divorces by targeting other men's wives and sending cruel messages about their husbands. Lindsay mostly pursued single women, so she didn't directly cause any divorces. Brooke, on the other hand, was responsible for 10 divorces, none of which led to reconciliation because the wives lost all respect for their husbands after discovering what had happened. Pamela caused 1 divorce, and Veronica was directly responsible for 13, with 2 reconciliations. These numbers only account for the direct divorces. Some of the men involved implicated other women, leading to additional divorces and a few arrests due to resulting confrontations. Thankfully, no one died, though there were serious consequences for all involved. Cole, nicknamed Lefty, after an incident involving Lindsay and Morgan, ended up with permanent complications. He tried to press charges, but explaining how the injury occurred proved difficult. The detectives handling the case had a hard time keeping straight faces. As for Gabrielle Brennan, Cole's ex-wife, I met with her to apologize for the blame she took during the sisters' divorces. She joked about the incident where she broke Pamela's nose, calling it the highlight of my year. I asked if she was dating and introduced her to my recently divorced 6'2" neighbor, Marcus O'Brien, who used to play rugby. She was interested and they hit it off. After a barbecue at my place, she and her kids spent the night at his house, and they never left. They got married 6 months later with Elena, several months pregnant with our first child, as a bridesmaid. As for me, my business is thriving. Before retiring, Elena secured 3 major clients, ensuring the company's success. We got married quickly. I couldn't help it. I keep getting her pregnant. We're now expecting our 4th child. We moved near my parents to a beachfront property in Naples, Florida, where it's warm 300 days a year. We live in a small house but spend most of our time on the large back deck with our 3 huge dogs. I trained the dogs to bark and growl at a picture of my ex-wife, just in case she ever shows up looking for money. Unfortunately, one of the local vet assistants looks like my ex, so she has to avoid coming by when my dogs are around. Before we married, I showed Elena all the details of my surveillance activities. She took it as a warning but laughed and told me she had nothing to worry about. Perfect response. And yes, as you might have guessed, I was the executor of the trust in Veronica's uncle's name. I closed the trust to reclaim my investment and start my new life. Thank you for your viewing. See you next time. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.